Welcome back to my 3 Minutes on the Clock podcast. This is my 8th 2019 NFL mock draft. I appreciate all the positive, and I know there's been some negative feedback in the first 7, as the NFL draft is only 2 weeks away, so if I were to continue with this 2-week interval, this would technically be my last mock draft. However, I do have one more planned for next weekend, and I also am going to have other NFL draft-related videos up within the next few weeks. I'm going to have grades at the end as well. I've been doing grades for the past 3 years, and I've done a pretty good job with them. Like in 2017, I gave the Saints an A+. While that isn't on YouTube, I still feel pretty good about that. So, like the last mock draft, this is 3 rounds with trades. When the pick is in blue, that means there's been a trade up. And when the pick is red, that means that team traded down. You'll see what I'm saying in just a second. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Just so you guys know, this is what I think will, not should happen. If I was the GM, Ed Oliver would definitely be in this top 8, for example. So we already have a trade, as Arizona will be moving down 3 spots. It's the Oakland Raiders who move up to number 1 and draft Kyler Murray, quarterback from Oklahoma. I've mentioned it in numerous mock drafts, and I'll mention it again. I don't think the Cardinals are actually that interested in Kyler. I just think that they want teams to think that Kyler will go number 1, and if they want to make a trade package, they're going to have to give up a lot. And if that's the case, then props to Arizona, because that is genius. And if they do want Kyler Murray, then I don't hate the idea. Kyler is not like a quarterback we've seen. Meanwhile, Josh Rosen is sort of more like a prototypical NFL quarterback, and I think Kyler Murray will be much more frightening to the opposing defensive coordinator. So I don't think picking Kyler at 1 is a bad idea. And looking at it in Oakland's perspective, they are giving up a bit, including their second first-round pick this year, pick 24, and some other late-round picks. I don't think it's that bad of a trade for Oakland. I don't think they're giving up that much, really only 1 first and late-round picks. They still keep pick 27, and they get Kyler Murray, who is a very intriguing player. If they draft Kyler Murray, I'd expect Derek Carr to be traded. I don't have a Derek Carr trade in this mock, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. And I think this is a very interesting move for Oakland, as they will be moving to Las Vegas in 2020. So it gives them a hyped-up young player like Kyler Murray. So it'll be a second year when the Raiders to move to Las Vegas. So it's basically like you're going into Las Vegas with like Baker Mayfield now. Obviously, Mayfield has a lot of hype, and if Kyler has a good year, then he will too. I think this is a solid move for both sides. Second pick. Niners get Nick Bosa, edge rusher, Ohio State. Many people think he's the best player in this draft class, and it makes sense for the Niners. They acquired Dee Ford from the Kansas City Chiefs, get themselves another nice pass rusher next to him. Pick 3, Jets get Josh Allen, edge rusher from Kentucky. The Jets have not had a pure pass rusher in a long time, and Josh Allen got 17.5 sacks last year in the SEC, making him a very intriguing pick here. You can have him as his hand in the dirt. You can have him as more of a linebacker. And heck, he can even play a little bit of middle linebacker. I think he's good enough in coverage. Pick 4, Cardinals get Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle from Alabama. I grade Quinnen Williams higher than all of the other 3 top prospects, or the guys who win the top 3. So Arizona is getting Williams at 4, and I think he's a better value pick than Kyler at 1, Bosa at 2, and Josh Allen at 3. And not to mention, Arizona will be picking again here in round 1. Quinnen Williams is a phenomenal player, so much upside, super athletic, phenomenal production at Alabama. He pretty much checks all the boxes and is a pretty safe selection, but he also does have lots of upside. Bucks get Devin White, middle linebacker from LSU. I really want my Lions to get him, and I just don't know if he's going to fall to 8 with the glaring hole at middle linebacker for Tampa Bay. They lost Quan Alexander, and this pick just makes too much sense. I think this is a home run selection for the Bucks. Giants get Rashawn Gary, edge rusher from Michigan. A lot of people dislike Rashawn Gary. I don't understand it. I think he's a phenomenal player. Yeah, he was not great last year, but it's not his fault. I've mentioned the Desmond Kane rule plenty of times in these mock drafts, and I'm going to mention it again. Desmond King is a cornerback on the Chargers. He would have been a first-round pick in 2016, but no quarterback threw the ball anywhere near him in 2017. He fell to the 5th round where the Chargers took him, and he was an NFL All-Pro last year. I think that these college defensive coordinators have focused in on Rashawn Gary, double-teaming him all the chances they can get, limiting his production, and that's not Gary's fault at all. If anything, that should be a plus for him. He had a really good combine. He's very versatile. You can put him at tackle. You can put him at edge. And I just think he is a really good prospect. And in a normal draft class, he'd easily be a top 5 pick. But with all the talent on the defensive side of the ball, he will go at 6 to the Giants. Dwayne Haskins or even Drew Lock could be the pick here, but I have them going with Gary. Pick 7, Jacksonville Jaguars get Jawaan Taylor, right tackle from Florida. Jeremy Parnell was cut, and that's really the Jaguars' only hole on their offensive line. They want to get Nick Foles as much protection as they can. Foles had a very good offensive line in Philadelphia, and they want to maximize his skill set. Taylor is very agile, very good combine, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the first tackle off the board. Could be Andre Dillard. I had him at 6, and one of my recent mock drafts to the Giants, a lot of people disagreed there. And yeah, 6 might be a little bit high, but I think Dillard is very good, and I think Jawaan Taylor is too. And then pick 8, Lions get Montez Sweat, edge rusher from Mississippi State. As a Lions fan, I'd be okay with this pick. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. I'd be happy with Montez Sweat. Obviously, speed kills, 4.43 40-yard dash. We did sign Trey Flowers in the offseason, however, don't have any other great edge rushers. Yeah, Romeo Okwara is solid, but I view him as more of a rotation guy. So Trey Flowers and Montez Sweat are the main defensive ends, with Okwara coming in as a rotation guy, and then Deshaun Hand, Snacks Harrison, and A'Shawn Robinson inside. I think that's a filthy defensive line. Personally, I'm not high on A'Shawn, but he's a depth guy, more of a rotation guy like Okwara. And the Lions' defensive line, while it's not been good in recent years, it will be good now. Pick 9, Bills select TJ Hawkinson, tight end from Iowa. This could be the Lions' selection, and I've sort of come to terms with TJ Hawkinson. If it was a month ago or even a week ago, I wouldn't really be happy with him at 8, but really thinking about it, I wouldn't be too pissed off if the Lions did take him there. However, I do obviously have us getting Montez Sweat, and then here, Hawkinson, he's a very good pass catcher, very good run blocker, all-around very good player, a lot of comparison to a George Kittle, and I think if the Bills are getting George Kittle's talent here at 9, I think they'd be more than thrilled. They cut Charles Clay, and they want to get a good pass option for Josh Allen. Hawkinson won the John Mackey Award, basically meaning he was the best tight end in college football, and I think this is a very solid pick for Buffalo. Pick 10, Broncos select Drew Lock, quarterback, Missouri. So Lock goes ahead of Dwayne Haskins, which is very interesting. I don't think the skill gap between Lock and Haskins is as big as people think. I think Drew Lock is very underrated, and I think this is a nice pick for Denver. John Elway gets the guy he really wants. Yeah, Denver could go a position player, but Joe Flacco is not going to be there long term, and I think this pick makes a ton of sense for Denver. Speaking of Dwayne Haskins, I have him going with the very next pick to the Cincinnati Bengals. I think if Devin White is on the board, that's the easy pick. Could look at offensive line, could look at Devin Bush. However, Andy Dalton is not the long-term guy anymore, and with Dwayne Haskins on the board, the Bengals don't have to give up any other assets to trade up. They can just get him now. Haskins is a great pocket passer, not super mobile, not super great outside the pocket, and the Bengals don't have a great offensive line, but it's fine because Andy Dalton is still a starting caliber quarterback, and they can still start him this season, and then Haskins can be the guy next year and long term. Pick 12, the Packers get Clelin Ferrell, edge rusher from Clemson. I've seen Ferrell take a dip in recent mock drafts, however, I have him going here at 12 to the Packers. Ferrell's been very good in his Clemson career, and the Packers have spent a lot of money on edge rushers, so they know rushing the quarterback is important, and I have them getting another one here. The Packers do have another first-rounder, pick 30, by the New Orleans Saints, which, hint, hint, will not be on the defensive side of the ball. So the Packers' pass rushers will basically be Clelin Ferrell as one end, Preston Smith as the other, and then the linebackers are, Darius Smith and Kyler Fackrell. That is a great foursome for the Packers, all getting to the quarterback. Those four will wreak havoc in the NFC North for Mitchell Trubisky, Kirk Cousins, and Matthew Stafford. Pick 13, Dolphins get a steal in Ed Oliver, defensive tackle from Houston. Quarterback is obviously something that the Dolphins are going to consider. However, Daniel Jones is not good value here at 13. I think Oliver is the best player in this draft class, and this is just a phenomenal pick for Denver. They lost Cameron Wake to the Titans, but their defensive line is still solid. Charles Harris can develop. Devon Godshaw inside is a player I really like, and adding Ed Oliver to that group is a phenomenal move for the Dolphins, and I think they've had a pretty solid offseason and a very good draft pick. Obviously, Atlanta would have picked Ed Oliver in this scenario. However, they get a different talented defensive tackle in Christian Wilkins from Clemson. So now the Falcons have 3 Clemson defensive linemen in Vic Beasley, Grady Jarrett, and Wilkins, with the UCLA guy in Takk McKinley, who I am a big fan of, by the way. I think that's a scary foursome for their defensive line. Wilkins has been a interior presence for the Clemson Tigers, one of the main reasons why they've won 2 national championships in the past 3 seasons, especially this year. And Wilkins has had a very talented defensive line around him in Clemson, and now he's going to have a very talented group around him in the NFL. Pick 15, Redskins select DK Metcalf, wide receiver, Ole Miss. Very relieved that he would not be going to the Packers. I really hope the Packers don't pick him in real life. Please don't do it, Green Bay. Metcalf is a very good player. I think he is the best offensive player in this draft class, regardless of position. He has the height, he has the weight, he has the athleticism, he has the speed. He can really do it all except for route running. Not a great route runner, medical red flags, but other than that, DK Metcalf is phenomenal. Pick 16, Panthers select Brian Burns, edge rusher from Florida State. Julius Peppers just retired. Panthers need some new edge rushers getting to the quarterback. They don't have a phenomenal pass rushing group, and I think this is solid value at 16 for Mr. Burns. I have a pair of trades here with picks 17 through 24. Starting with pick 17, not a trade. The Giants select Andre Dillard, offensive tackle from Washington State. This pick was the one acquired in the Odell Beckham deal. I had the Giants getting Dillard at 6 a while ago, as I mentioned, and I have him falling to 17. Dillard is a great pass blocker, best one in this draft class, very good combine, very good Senior Bowl, will plug right in at right tackle, and he'll give Eli Manning some more time so Manning can maybe throw 15-yard passes instead of 10. Pick 18, Minnesota Vikings get Jonah Williams, offensive lineman from Alabama. I had Williams falling to 23 in my last mock draft, steal for the Texans, and the Texans are getting another steal, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes, but Williams is a very good player. You can put him at tackle, you can put him at guard, and the Vikings need both tackle and guard, so they can just pretty much put him wherever they see fit. Pick 19, we have a trade. I have a pair of aggressive teams making a move. Tennessee moving down 10 spots. It's the Kansas City Chiefs who move up and select Greedy Williams, cornerback from LSU. The main assets that the Titans are getting are the Chiefs' first-round pick as well as their second-round pick. The Chiefs still do have the Rams' second-round pick, so they still have a late pick in the second round. But I have them getting Greedy Williams here. I think this pick makes a ton of sense for Kansas City, as Greedy Williams, in my opinion, is a top 10 talent. Easily the best corner in this draft class. Long, lean, athletic, good hands, all-around phenomenal player. I think that the Chiefs do need help on their outside at cornerback. They have Kendall Fuller, who's great as a nickel guy, but they need that tall, rangy corner like Greedy Williams. I think this is a great move for the Chiefs. And for the Titans, they move down 10 spots, and they get a second-round pick out of it, so not a bad move by them either. Pick 20, I have the Steelers getting Devin Bush, linebacker from Michigan. Ryan Shazier probably won't play another game in the league, unfortunately. And the Steelers do have some holes, cornerback, wide receiver, maybe tight end. But I have them getting Bush from Michigan. Very good leader, very athletic. I do think he's a little bit raw, but he's likely going to get a lot of early playing time. And I think he'll be a good leading replacement for Ryan Shazier. I think this is a very nice pick for the Steelers at 20. Pick 21, we have another trade. As Seattle, they only have 4 picks, and it makes a ton of sense for them to move down. I have the Indianapolis Colts hopping up to select N'Keal Harry, wide receiver from Arizona State. And the reason why I'm doing this is because the Ravens are up next at 22. They need a receiver. N'Keal Harry is probably the best one on most people's boards. The Colts might want N'Keal Harry too, so they jump ahead of the Ravens to do it. Harry's not particularly fast, but 4.53 was that his 40-yard dash. Still a very respectable time. Good route runner, good hands. I think him and T.Y. Hilton will complement each other very well, even though they are very different players. They're still both very good players. Pick 22, Ravens have to settle with Garrett Bradbury, center from NC State. And I say they have to settle with him, but he's still a very good player. Extremely good combine, which hopped him up to a first-round projection. The Ravens could use some interior offensive linemen. They have Ronnie Stanley, and they have Orlando Brown as their tackles. But they lost Ryan Jensen last year in free agency, and they could use a center. Bradbury can also play guard, and while Marshall Yanda is very good, he's also very old. I expect Bradbury to slide into center and start right away, so the Ravens are getting someone who can make an immediate impact. Pick 23, Texans select Cody Ford, offensive lineman from Oklahoma. Cody Ford is a player who I really like. Very versatile. You can put him at tackle. You can put him at guard. Lots of production for the Sooners. One of the biggest reasons why they've had 2 straight Heisman winners at the quarterback positions with Baker and Kyler. And I think this is a steal for Houston. Pick 24, we have another offensive lineman, this time Dalton Risner, to Arizona. This was the pick that they got from moving down 3 spots with the Oakland Raiders. Risner, like Cody Ford, is also versatile. Risner can play anywhere on the offensive line, and the Cardinals do have numerous holes there, so makes sense for them. Pick 25, the Eagles select Greg Little, offensive tackle from Ole Miss, as Little is struggling in the combine. A lot of people have him as a second-round pick. However, Jason Peters is not getting any younger. His bones are made of glass, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be returning next year, so Greg Little can sort of redshirt for a season, and then he can be the starter next year. Pick 26, Seahawks get Nasir Adderley, safety from Delaware. This is the Earl Thomas replacement. I'm a huge fan of Adderley. Very athletic, very rangy, and I've seen a lot of mock drafts with the Lions getting him in round 2, which that would make me quite thrilled, but I just don't think he'll be on the board, sadly, and I think this is a great pick for the Steelers. Why do I keep saying the Steelers? This is a great pick for the Seahawks, and they also have Indianapolis' 3rd-round pick, so they have good value, plus an extra draft pick. Great move for Seattle. Pick 27, the Raiders get Byron Murphy, cornerback from Washington. Murphy is a very high-instinct player. Him and Garyon Conley should be nice complements for each other. Pick 28, Chargers get Jerry Tillery, defensive tackle, Notre Dame. I've had Tillery mocked at the Chargers a lot, as they need help at defensive tackle to create more opportunities for Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. Tillery is the best one on the board. There is a fire truck or something in the background, if you can hear that. So yeah, Tillery is a Charger. Pick 29, Titans get Dexter Lawrence, defensive tackle from Clemson. I've had Lawrence going in round 2 in most of my mock drafts. However, I have the Titans getting him in round 1. Lawrence is a big, physical player, 350 pounds, and he's definitely a great run stuffer. He should create great pass rushing opportunities for Jarrell Casey and Cameron Wake. Pick 30, the Packers get Marquise Hollywood Brown, wide receiver from Oklahoma. Speed kills, gets Aaron Rodgers a deep threat. Brown did not participate in the combine due to an injury, but he'll stretch the field very nicely out in Green Bay. Pick 31, Rams get DeAndre Baker, corner from Georgia. Marcus Peters, I think, is overrated. He's not that great of a cover corner. Aqib Talib isn't getting any younger, and I think corner makes sense here for the Rams. Baker, not the biggest and not the most talented, but definitely has a great skill set, phenomenal production at Georgia, and I think this is about the right value for Baker, late first, early second. And then pick 32, the Patriots get Noah Fant, tight end from Iowa. Please don't let this happen. I think Noah Fant is a top 15 talent. The Packers very well could pick him at 12, and that's still good value, which, as a Lions fan, I don't want that either, as this is your Gronk replacement, folks, if he's on the board, which is no guarantee. And Noah Fant is a great player, very athletic, can stretch the field, a lot like Evan Engram, as they're both very athletic, both great receivers, but not great blockers, which is definitely a limitation to Noah Fant's game. But other than that, he is a phenomenal player, and this is a steal at 32 for New England. Now we are on to the second round, and the first pick of the second round, the Arizona Cardinals select Rocky Ya-Sin, cornerback from Temple. Good in press coverage, physical corner. The Cardinals have Patrick Peterson, who's great. They have Budda Baker, who's sort of a versatile hybrid player. And I think they need one more corner to solidify that unit, at least for the next few years, until Peterson really starts to decline. And I think that can be Rocky Ya-Sin. Sort of a toss-up between him or Amani Oruwariye, just based off what you prefer. And I've seen Rocky Ya-Sin go higher in most mock drafts than Oruwariye. So that's the only reason why I have him going here instead of Oruwariye. Pick 34, the Colts get Jalen Ferguson, edge rusher from Louisiana Tech. The Colts have a very interesting group of pass rushers. Jabal Sheard, who's not getting any younger. Then they have Denico Autry, Tyquan Lewis, and Kamoko Toure on their defensive line. Solid group, but I think they could use an extra. And that can be Ferguson from Louisiana Tech, who lots of production, broke Terrell Suggs' sack record, and I think this is a very solid pick for Indy here at 34. Pick 35, the Raiders get Josh Jacobs, running back from Alabama. I've had the Raiders getting Jacobs a lot, and I think it makes sense with this pick. I just don't see Jacobs going in the first round. Wouldn't be surprised if it happened, but I'd be a little bit surprised. Jacobs is sort of a meme in the OFL with his low yards per carry, and in real life, he's the opposite. And what I mean by that is he didn't get a lot of touches in Alabama, but when he did, he was very good and very explosive, even though usually he was the third guy on the depth chart behind Damian Harris and Najee Harris. Pick 36, I have a trade. I have the 49ers collecting a second and a third from New England, and the Patriots will move up and get Daniel Jones, quarterback from Duke. Now, New England does have another second and another third, so they each have another. So the Patriots have another selection in each round, as they've been stockpiling on draft assets, and they're going to sort of cash some of them in at least, to get what they think can be their long-term quarterback in Daniel Jones. Jones has had a solid Duke career. I don't think he's quite as good as the three guys I had in the first round, Kyler, Locke, and Dwayne Haskins. And I think Jones very well could be a first-round pick. I definitely expect him to be the fourth quarterback taken. No earlier, no later. And I think this is a good move for New England, potentially getting their heir apparent to Tom Brady. Pick 37, another deal. I have the Steelers sending their second and fourth round picks to the New York Giants for pick 37. And I have the Steelers getting A.J. Brown, wide receiver, Ole Miss, with the selection. So they're replacing Antonio Brown with another receiver with the initials A. Brown. A.J. Brown is very similar to N'Keal Harry. Not necessarily the fastest, not necessarily the highest ceiling, but a very nice floor, very good route runner, good in the short game. And I think this pick makes sense for Steelers, as they have a all-around good receiver in Juju Smith-Schuster, and James Washington, who is a solid player. Complement them with A.J. Brown, who can play on the outside as well as the slot. I think this makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. Pick 38, Jaguars get Jonathan Abram, safety from Mississippi State, as Abram is a very old-school, hard-hitting safety. They let Deshaun Gibson go, and he signed with the rival Texans. And I think Abram and Ronnie Harrison, who I really liked last year out of Alabama, I think they're going to be a nice pairing. Pick 39, Tampa Bay Buccaneers get Amani Oruwariye, cornerback from Penn State. Tall, experienced. He is 23, which is a little bit older, but I think he'll contribute early on. The Bucs spent 2 second-round picks last year on corners, and M.J. Stewart and Carlton Davis. Maybe one of them develops, maybe Vernon Hargreaves develop, but none of them have really shown tremendous flashes yet. And Oruwariye is someone who I think can be very good right away. Pick 40. The Bills get Draymond Jones, defensive tackle, Ohio State. I have had them going Ed Oliver multiple times. However, in this mock draft, I did have them selecting T.J. Hawkinson. So I do think defensive tackle is a need with Kyle Williams retiring. and Draymond Jones can definitely be that guy. Obviously not as good as Ed Oliver, and probably won't be as good as Kyle Williams, but I still think this is a solid pick for Buffalo, fitting a need on their defense. Pick 41, the Broncos get Chris Lindstrom, guard from Boston College. I think they could use some work on the interior of their offensive line. They lost Matt Paradis, who is a center, but they still need work there anyway. And Chris Lindstrom, I think this is solid value for him. I've had him mocked in the first round multiple times, but last-second changes have moved him out of that first round. And I don't think in any video I actually have had him in the first round, believe it or not. And I do think this is good value for Denver, getting an offensive lineman for Joe Flacco / Drew Lock. Pick 42, the Bengals get Hakeem Butler, wide receiver, Iowa State, getting a big-bodied receiver for Dwayne Haskins, sort of a poor man's version of DK Metcalf, as they're both big, both fast, both have good jump ball catching radiuses, and I think this is a very solid pick for the Bengals. I think Butler is a very underrated player. Pick 43, Lions get Taylor Rapp, safety, Washington. They let Glover Quinn go, and I want to do more extensive research, watch some good tape of Taylor Rapp, and I do think this is a solid value at 43. Not in love with him. I want to make myself in love with him, and I think this is a solid pick for my Lions. Pair him with Quandre Diggs, who had a pretty good year last year. Pick 44, Packers get Irv Smith, tight end, Alabama. They could use another tight end, and I do think this is solid value. Irv Smith is a solid run blocker, solid blocker in general, and he's also a pretty good pass catcher, so I think this makes sense for them. Pick 45, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to the Falcons. Versatile defensive back. You can put him in the nickel, you can put him at safety, and I think the Falcons do need a corner more than they do safety. Keanu Neal is great. DeMonte Casey played pretty well last year. Ricardo Allen's a good player, so safety's not really a need. But corner, Desmond Trufant can't always stay healthy, and then they let Robert Alford and Brian Poole go this offseason, so I expect Gardner-Johnson to probably move to the nickel spot. Pick 46, Redskins get Zach Allen, edge rusher from Boston College. As Preston Smith left this offseason, Trent Murphy left last offseason, so they need some new pass rushers, and I think that can be Mr. Zach Allen. Pick 47, Panthers get Trayvon Mullen, corner from Clemson. Very good in the national championship. They need someone to pair with Dante Jackson, and I think that could be Mullen. And then pick 48, Jeffrey Simmons to the Dolphins. Simmons is a top 10 talent in this draft class. Probably not going to play this year, so we can sort of help the Dolphins tank. And I think him or Oliver could always move to defensive end. Yeah, they're both primary defensive tackles. I understand that. But I think they're both athletic and versatile enough to eventually move to that end spot. Pick 49, I have the Browns going Mack Wilson, linebacker, Alabama. I think Joe Scobert is sort of on the overrated side. Good tackler, but just not all that great. And I think Mack Wilson does make sense in this spot. The Giants did trade up, and they could use help at linebacker, and I assume they're sad that Wilson is off the board. Pick 50, Vikings go Charles Omenihu, defensive lineman from Texas. Have not bothered to learn how to say his name because I've not talked about him a lot in these mock drafts, as he's pretty versatile. He can play both tackle and end, mainly more of a tackle, which I would say is the Vikings' bigger need with the loss of Sheldon Richardson. Pick 51, Elgton Jenkins, going to the Tennessee Titans. I think they could use some interior offensive line presence, and I think this is pretty solid value for Jenkins. Pick 52, the Giants have to settle with Voshon Joseph, linebacker from Florida. He can play outside linebacker as well as inside linebacker, and I still think this is a solid pick for them. I don't think the skill gap between him and Mack Wilson is very large. This was the pick that the Giants got from trading down when the Steelers got A.J. Brown earlier in the video. Pick 53, I have Jachai Polite to the Philadelphia Eagles, as Polite, very talented edge rusher, struggled in the combine, struggled in his pro day, struggled in interviews, but other than that, had a really good year at Florida. Pick 54, David Long is headed to the Houston Texans out of Michigan. Definitely improved his combine, or definitely improved his stock during the combine, and I do think the Texans could use help at that cornerback position after losing guys like Kareem Jackson and the Honey Badger, even though Tyrann Mathieu is more of a safety. And then the Texans have back-to-back picks. I have them going Mitch Hyatt, offensive tackle from Clemson. Hyatt was more of a higher-ranked prospect a year ago, but I still think this is solid value for the Texans, who absolutely need offensive line. I have them going Cody Ford in round 1. and I have them now getting Hyatt here. Cody Ford and Mitch Hyatt can be their long-term right side of their line, which is definitely solid. And then the 49ers get Jamel Dean, corner from Auburn, 4.3 40-yard dash. I think they need another corner with Richard Sherman, and that can be Jamel Dean. Not the biggest guy, but he's a very good athlete, and obviously he speed kills. With pick 57, the Eagles select Deontay Thompson, safety from Alabama. So in the first 2 rounds, the Eagles get Greg Little, Jachai Polite, and Deontay Thompson. If this was January, gosh dang, the Eagles would be winning this draft, as all 3 of those guys have had their stock drop a little bit. Thompson sort of did not have a great ending to his college year, did not participate in the combine due to an injury, but the talent still speaks, and I still think he's a high to mid second round caliber prospect. I've always had Nasir Adderley a little bit above him, and that hasn't really changed throughout the pre-draft process, as Thompson has had a very solid career at Alabama, and the Eagles could use some depth in their secondary. I think Thompson and Malcolm Jenkins can be a nice duo until Jenkins is regressing. Roddy McLeod, decent player, but needs to stay on the field. Pick 58, Cowboys select Paris Campbell, wide receiver, Ohio State. Value-wise, this is a great pick at 58 for the Cowboys. 4.31 40-yard dash, speed kills, baby. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and Paris Campbell will be a scary trio together. They don't really have that big guy in the red zone. I mean, maybe Jason Witten, if that counts. But Dak Prescott gets someone who can stretch the field. And value-wise, as I said, this is a really good pick. How he's on the board at 58, I don't know. It's my mock draft, so reasons. Pick 59, Colts select Martez Ivy, guard from Florida. They selected Quentin Nelson in the first round last year. I thought it was a great pick at the time, and it ended up being a great pick. But I think they could use a few more pieces on their O-line. I think it play tackle and guard. Man, makes sense here. Pick 60, another versatile offensive lineman, Caleb McGarry from Washington. I think the Chargers could use some tackles. Their offensive line isn't that bad, even though on paper it sort of is. And I do think they could use some young bloods in there. Russell Okung is pretty good, but outside of that, I mean, Forrest Lamp, I really liked him coming out of Western Kentucky, but he's not even a tackle anyway. And I would say that's McGarry's primary position. Pick 61, Titans select Juan Thornhill, defensive back from Virginia. This is the pick they got from trading back earlier in the first round for the Chiefs to get Greedy Williams. Thornhill is a very athletic, versatile defensive back. He can play corner and safety, 44-inch vertical jump. But man, I cannot speak. The Titans have talent in their secondary, Adoree Jackson, Logan Ryan, Kevin Byard, Kenny Vaccaro, but I think they're missing that one piece, and that can be Thornhill. Pick 62, Justin Lane to the Saints. Marshawn Lattimore is great, but outside of that, they're not phenomenal at corner. Eli Apple was okay coming in from the Giants, but I think they could use someone else, and that can be Justin Lane from the Michigan State Spartans. Pick 63, Blake Cashman, linebacker, Minnesota to Kansas City. They need help in their linebacking core. Not much to say about that. They cut Justin Houston. They traded away Dee Ford, and what's-his-face? Reggie Ragland, Anthony Hitchens. They're okay, but they need someone else, and that could be Cashman from the Golden Gophers. And then pick 64, Andy Isabella to the New England Patriots. Makes perfect sense. White wide receiver, but he's not your prototypical white wide receivers. 4.31 40-yard dash, and he played his college ball in Massachusetts, so this pick just makes so much sense for New England, who did just lose Chris Hogan, who signed with Carolina. So this has been a phenomenal draft for New England so far, getting Noah Fant and Andy Isabella. And Daniel Jones, I totally forgot about him. Now on to the third round. I'm going to try to go quickly here. Kelvin Harmon to the Cardinals. They need that big-bodied receiver to replace Larry Fitzgerald. Yeah, Fitzgerald is back next year, but he's not going to be back forever. Kelvin Harmon, good red zone guy. I think him and Christian Kirk can be a solid long-term duo for Josh Rosen. Pick 66, Julian Love to the Steelers. This pick was acquired in the Antonio Brown trade, and I think corner is absolutely a need for the Steelers. They signed Steven Nelson. They have Mike Hilton, who are both primarily slot guys, and Artie Burns is not great, so they really do need another corner, and I think this is solid value for Julian Love from Notre Dame. Pick 67, Eric McCoy to the Niners. Athletic, versatile. They could use help in the interior of their offensive line. Makes sense. Pick 68, Tarek McLaurin, wide receiver, Ohio State to the Jets. Height, weight, speed guy. I think he'll be a nice addition to their already pretty talented receiving core of Robbie Anderson, Quincy Enunwa, and the recently signed Jamison Crowder. Speaking of wide receivers, Deebo Samuel to the Jaguars, as I think they could use another weapon for Nick Foles. They have DJ Chark, who I like. Dede Westbrook's good, but their receiving core is far from great, and I think this is a solid selection. Pick 70, Chase Winovich, headed down south to Tampa Bay, edge rusher from Michigan. Solid production with the Wolverines, and he has some very nice hair, so that's automatically an A+ for the Bucs, who have really improved their defense, adding Devin White, Amani Oruwariye, and now Chase Winovich. Pick 71, Khalil Hodge, linebacker, Buffalo, to the Denver Broncos. I think they could use help at middle linebacker. Hodge just had a very solid career with the Buffalo Bulls. And then pick 72, Titus Howard to the Bengals from Alabama State. Very athletic offensive tackle. They've sort of missed on some of their previous offensive tackle. They've picked high. Guys like Cedric Abuhe, Jake Fisher, who's now playing tight end. I think he signed with the Bills, I want to say. And I think this is a very solid pick for Cincinnati. Titus Howard has a ton of upside. Very solid selection for them. Pick 73, Michael Deiter, offensive lineman from Wisconsin to the Niners, getting themselves another interior offensive lineman. Deiter can play tackle as well as guard as well as center. Great run blocker. Should be very useful for Tevin Coleman and Jerick McKinnon. That's going to be a very interesting one to punch. And not to mention Matt Breida as well. I forgot about him. So that is a three-headed monster at running back. Pick 74, Damian Harris, running back Alabama to the Bills. Shady McCoy is not the guy anymore. Harris has a nice blend of quickness and power. Pick 75, David Montgomery from Iowa State. Another running back. He's headed to Green Bay. So there's only been one running back before these two, and now they're back-to-back. As Aaron Jones, solid player, but he needs a complement. I don't really think it's Jamal Williams, so it can be Montgomery instead. And maybe if Montgomery's the better player, he can turn into the main running back. Pick 76, one of my favorite prospects in this draft class, Tyree Jackson, quarterback Buffalo, to the Washington Redskins. He's very raw, but with all their quarterback injuries, he's probably going to play like 3 games before getting injured himself. He's very similar to Josh Allen and even a little bit of Patrick Mahomes. All three have gigantic frames, super strong arms, super mobile, or I wouldn't say super mobile, but mobile enough, and not super accurate. I mean, I guess Mahomes is pretty accurate, but Josh Allen isn't. So I would say Josh Allen is a perfect player comparison to Tyree Jackson, who's raw, but has so much upside. Big fan of his. Pick 77, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, wide receiver, Stanford, to the Miami... Oh, I forgot about Josh Oliver. Pick 77 is Josh Oliver, tight end from San Jose State. He's going to the Panthers. Greg Olson's not a young buck anymore. They need his replacement. Now J.J. Arcega-Whiteside to the Dolphins, as they let Danny Amendola go. Could use a new slot guy, and that can be J.J., who's a solid route runner, good hands. I think he's second-round value. And then pick 79, Gerald Willis III, defensive lineman from Miami, to the Falcons. Grady Jarrett's a free agent. I think Vic Beasley is a free agent. Or they're both free agents at the end of the season. Willis can be depth early on, but if they don't want to bring both those guys back, he can plug in for a year or two. And then Yannick Ajuste to the Cleveland Browns, offensive tackle, West Virginia. Their offensive tackles aren't great. They do have a very nice interior offensive line with Joel Bitonio, J.C. Treader, and Austin Corbett, but could use some tackles, and I think this is solid value for Ajuste. Pick 81 is Darrell Williams, offensive guard from Mississippi State to the Minnesota Vikings, as they need offensive line. I had them getting Jonah Williams in round 1, but that's not going to be enough. They need more. They have some solid players already with guys like Pat Elflein, Brian O'Neill, but that's not enough. So Darrell Williams can make their offensive line a little bit more respectable. I think if the Vikings offensive line plays well, they'll do really good, and if not, they'll disappoint again. I just think their season is really going to be based on those front 5. Pick 82, Caleb Wilson to the Titans, tight end UCLA. I've seen the Titans going tight end in a lot of mock drafts early on, which I don't think makes sense. However, in the third round with someone of Caleb Wilson's upside, I do think it makes sense. As Delaney Walker, not getting any younger, but I do think they have bigger holes, and I do like Jonnu Smith, but Wilson is a poor man's Noah Fant, so obviously he's athletic, meaning I really like him, as very athletic, as I just said, can stretch the field, vertical threat, and sort of a poor man's version of Noah Fant. Pick 83, Will Grier, quarterback, West Virginia, to the Giants. We know Eli Manning's not going to be good forever. At least I hope Dave Gettleman realizes that, or else he's just rock stupid. Not much of a Will Grier fan, wonky throwing motion. I just think he's too average, to be honest. Pick 84, Jace Sternberger, tight end, Texas A&M, to the Seattle Seahawks. Will Dissly is a phenomenal blocker and was pretty good last year as a rookie, but I do think they need a complement for him, and that can be Sternberger, who has quite a fun last name. Pick 85, Miles Sanders, running back, Penn State, to Baltimore. Good combine, solid season. I personally really like Miles Sanders, and I think this is a solid value pick for Baltimore, who could use an extra running back. Mark Ingram's pretty good. Gus Edwards not bad, and Lamar Jackson throws the ball, so I think another actual running back wouldn't hurt. Pick 86, Justice Hill from Oklahoma State to the Texans. Another running back who had a really good combine. Very explosive, not the biggest guy. He'll be a solid backup for Lamar Miller, as Deontay Foreman hasn't really panned out. Pick 87, Joejuan Williams to the Chicago Bears. Tall cornerback. They just lost Bryce Callahan, and they could use another guy alongside Kyle Fuller, who's had 2 really good seasons. And I think that can be Williams, who would have been a second-round pick if it weren't for a pretty below-average combine. Pick 88, my Lions get Riley Ridley, wide receiver from Georgia. So the Golden Tate replacement is a player who has some similarities to Tate and Ridley. More of a slot guy, best route runner in this draft class. He'll likely sit behind Danny Amendola year 1, but year 2 he can hop in there. This pick could be offensive line, as I definitely expect the Lions to go offense with at least one of their first 3 picks. However, I do like the value for Ridley here at 88. Pick 89, the Seahawks are back on the clock. This pick was originally from Indy, but remember they traded up to get N'Keal Harry, so this is no longer theirs. And Seattle will select Joe Jackson, edge rusher from Miami. Frank Clark is a very good player, but outside of that, they don't really have any young, good edge rushers. And Clark is on the last year of his deal anyway, so the Seahawks want to get someone in case he goes, which I can't imagine they'll let him go easily since he's such a good player. Pick 90, Cowboys select Kahale Warren, tight end, San Diego State. Obviously, Jason Witten's not going to be their starter for the next 10 years. I know most Cowboys fans probably do think that, but they need someone else to develop behind him. I was pretty high on Dalton Schultz, but he didn't really do too much. Jeff Swaim, is he still on the Cowboys? Not entirely sure, but yeah, they need someone else, and that can be Warren. Pick 91, Chargers select Ryan Finley, quarterback, NC State. Doesn't have a crazy high ceiling, more of a depth guy, and I think he can be a solid starter in this league, or could always be trade bait down the line. As Phillip Rivers, I don't really see him not putting up this production in 2 years from now. So Finley can either be a glorified backup for the next few years, sort of like Jimmy Garoppolo, and eventually used as trade bait potentially. Then the Chiefs will get Oshane Jamiez. I probably still said that wrong. Edge rusher from Old Dominion. They need edge rushing. Chris Jones is great, but he's on the last year of his deal. And as I mentioned earlier, they lost Dee Ford and Justin Houston, both of whom are great at getting to the quarterback. And I would say that's the one really good thing about the Chiefs' defense last year. And they lost 2 players who are great at that. Then the Jets are going to get Lonnie Johnson, corner from Kentucky. Tall, lean corner. I think they could use some extras, as Tremaine Johnson didn't really pan out to what the Jets were hoping for, but he's still going to start, and they need someone else next to him. The Rams will get David Edwards, offensive lineman from Wisconsin. More of an offensive tackle, I would say. He'll be the eventual Andrew Whitworth replacement, as Whitworth isn't getting any younger. Giants select Emmanuel Hall, wide receiver from Missouri. Deep threat, can stretch the field. Giants could use an Odell Beckham replacement, and yeah, he's probably not as good as Odell Beckham, but still solid nonetheless. And then the Redskins select Michael Jordan, offensive guard, Ohio State. Not the basketball player, Michael Jordan, a different one. They have Brandon Scherf at guard, who's good, but he can always be used as depth or start at left guard. The Redskins' offensive line was banged up all of last year, so I do think he will get a significant role year one. We're almost done, only 6 picks to go. Pick 97 belonging to the New England Patriots. They select Kalen Saunders, defensive tackle from Western Illinois. Malcolm Brown left in free agency to the Saints. And Danny Shelton, I believe, is a free agent next offseason, so they could use a new defensive tackle. And that can be Saunders, who's had some very nice production for the Western Illinois Leathernecks. Speaking of Western Illinois, my good buddy Franchise Gaming has an NCAA basketball dynasty with them. So if you want to click on my channels tab, the shout-out section, which I finally updated last weekend for the first time in like a year. Anyway, that's besides the point. Pick 98, Darrell Henderson, running back Memphis to the Jaguars. Small player, but very explosive. Leonard Fournette got arrested yesterday for like some sort of, I think he had a suspended license. And he's just not been mature. He's had numerous one-game suspensions for violating team rules. Last year during Week 17, Tom Coughlin questioned his and TJ Yeldon's maturity, and they need another compliment anyway since Yeldon is gone, and that can be Henderson, who's been a very good player for Memphis. Pick 99, Darnell Savage, safety from Maryland to the Rams. He had a very good combine. Eric Weddle, they signed him. Good player, but not getting any younger. And then pick 100 will be Brett Ripien, quarterback, Boise State to the Panthers. Yes, Cam Newton just had a big shoulder surgery, and while it seems like he's recovering well, I think the Panthers want to get in some competition just to motivate him, and sort of like Ryan Finley can be a glorified backup, and maybe can be used as trade bait down the line. Pick 101, Amani Hooker, safety from Iowa to the Patriots. They love having multiple good safeties. Devin McCourty pondered retirement. Patrick Chung's not getting any younger. Deron Harmon's not getting any younger, so they could use a young guy. And then pick 102, Tavon Coney, linebacker, Notre Dame, to the Ravens. They lost to Darius Smith. They lost C.J. Mosley. There are some big holes to fill at linebacker, and Terrell Suggs as well. So they're definitely going to have to revamp that linebacking core. That'll end the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're not already. The other video up today will probably be the Kings My League. I think I'm going to do 2 games in that episode, so double trouble. And have a great Saturday and a great weekend.